Let's get some analysis on this. We're joined in the studio now by journalist and author Tara Kangalu, who's currently working on an upcoming book about Iran. Tara, thank you for joining us. So we've got this situation where you've got two big powers at loggerheads. The Saudi king saying Iran is a threat to global security, Iran saying it hasn't targeted oil facilities and tankers. What's going on here?
Well, thank you for having me. I think earlier you said war of words, and this is precisely what's happening and what we're seeing. I think the summit that was held in Mecca was more of a narrative-building effort by Saudi Arabia, who wants to project this image that we are the authority in the region, we are the authority in the Gulf, and if we want to bring all the countries together, meaning the GCC and also some African countries, we will do that. And I think it's quite interesting how the Saudi king personally invited the Qatari emir. He, of course, sent his prime minister. And I think that really shows Saudi Arabia's desperation in wanting to build this anti-Iran narrative. And of course, as we've seen, not just recently, but over the years, Iran's counter-argument is that we're not doing anything, it's not our fault, we're just defending ourselves. And of course, back to the recent accusations, there are no concrete evidence. But of course, folks like John Bolton and those who are very much aligned with Saudi Arabia continue these accusations.
Not blanket support for Saudi's views, though. This looks as though it could be quite divisive in some areas, because Iraq has come out and said, we do not agree with the final communique. And Iraq, of course, in the unenviable position of being allies of both Iran and the US.
Absolutely. There is quite a divide in the Gulf. Kuwait, has been one of the countries who has been recognized as a mediator, potential mediator. Qatar may be a mediator. Iraq, of course, has been very vocal on their lack of support on the US narrative in confronting Iran. And I think it's interesting to point out that last week, the deputy foreign minister of Iran, who was also an active player in the nuclear deal back in 2015, he went on a tour in the region. He visited Gulf countries and was promoting this narrative of non-aggression pact. So Iran is also doing what it can do in sort of creating pockets of opportunity for itself in these divisive moments and divides in the Gulf itself.
But how do you see this developing? Because King Salman has pressed the international community to use, quote, all means to stop Iran from interfering. Now, he knows he's got the US on his side, so where could this lead?
Absolutely. And I think it really comes down to the United States and whether or not the Trump administration wants to fight Saudi Arabia's war. Because it's very clear that this is more about what Saudi Arabia and Israel want versus what the Trump administration or the United States want. And I think it's quite important to pay attention to the disconnect between what comes from the President of the United States, Donald Trump, versus what comes from folks like Bolton and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Those are two very distinct narratives. Even yesterday, President Trump said we're welcoming negotiations with Iran. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is going to Tehran. It's confirmed. So he's saying the opposite of folks like Pompeo and, of course, Secretary of State. So I think that's where our eyes need to be and really what comes from the President of the United States.
Interesting stuff. Tara, thank you very much indeed for joining me in the studio. Tara Kangalu there.